Thank you all for joining and welcome to the October Green Careers session for Green Home NYC. We have three really amazing panelists joining us today. Just a quick reminder as people come on, for those of you who aren't speaking, please mute your line so that we don't interrupt the speakers and the presentations. So we'll get to our speakers shortly. For those of you not familiar with Green Home NYC, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2002 with our goal to promote an energy efficient and sustainable built environment to support green professional development in the New York City building market. Our organization offers a variety of programs, including green career sessions monthly, which you're joining one. We also have forums that occur also monthly. And we offer tours of built sites in the local New York City metro area related to sustainability. So we have a pretty diverse community here at Green Home NYC. We have a large volunteer organization, and there are always opportunities to get involved with our organization through either volunteering or by joining our community of sustainability professionals and sustainability advocates in the New York City area. So if you're interested, please get in touch with us. We do have some upcoming events. Next Wednesday, we have our monthly forum event, which will be in person at the Fujitsu Air Stage on Broadway. So for those of you who receive our newsletter or have received promotions related to Green Home NYC, feel free to sign up for that in-person event next Wednesday. It should be very interesting, and we're also very excited to get back to in-person organization. So tonight, we have a very wonderful array of women entrepreneurs in sustainability. So we're very excited to introduce our panelists, our three panelists, and engage with them on the organizations that they've founded, how they have transitioned their careers to these leadership roles, and just the discussions that we'll engage with them on and how they got to where they are now. So without further ado, you'll see the panelists here: Nancy Colella from New York State Sustainable Corporation, Claire Mifflin, the founder of the Center for Zero Waste Design, and Samira Ahmadi from NV Energy Studio, also the founder of that organization. So I'm gonna do a quick overview, and then I'll turn it over to each of the speakers to discuss their individual organizations, their roles, and then we'll open it up for discussion amongst the participants. Please feel free to add your questions and any comments you have in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that for a live discussion amongst all participants. So Nancy is the managing director or managing principal of the New York State Sustainable Corp. As a curator and advocating procurement officer, she's dedicated to elevating energy conservation measures for commercial property owners throughout the state of New York. After spending 15 years as a marketing officer within the legal, commercial real estate, construction, and sustainability industry, she launched New York State Sustainable to facilitate commercial conservation measures affiliated with GreenTech integration towards the use of clean energy sources, and resource-driven community measures. So we'll hear from her shortly. Claire, who's joining us also from New York, is an architect and systems thinker with over 20 years of experience designing buildings to the highest environmental standards. She was also a member of the AIA COAT Committee, which is the Organization for Environmental Design. In 2017, she led the development of the Zero Waste Design Guidelines through a multidisciplinary collaborative process. Her groundbreaking resource looked at the crucial relationship between the design of the built environment and New York City's zero waste goals. She left architecture as a result to set up her nonprofit Center for Zero Waste Design with a mission to implement the guidelines within New York City and adapt them to other high-density cities worldwide. Her recent work includes the advocacy campaign, Put Waste to Work, Vibrant Streetscapes, Green Jobs and Healthy Neighborhoods with WXY to transform the way New York City manages waste, and getting trash bags off sidewalks and compost into soils, a large feat here in New York City. And then our final panelist, Samira Ahmadi, is the founding principal of NB Energy Studio, which is an energy and sustainability consulting firm serving regional and national clients looking for sustainable solutions in the built environment. Her practice focuses on sustainability and energy performance analyses for new construction and existing building retrofit projects, pursuing LEED certification and energy upgrades, occupants' health and comfort in the built environment, and post-occupancy evaluation, along with measurement and verification. Samira has more than 12 years of experience in energy modeling and sustainability consulting. She's an advocate of sustainability and energy efficiency in the built environment and served on the USGBC Massachusetts Chapter Board of Directors. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Nancy to start off the discussion focused on the New York State Sustainable Corp that you founded.
So good evening, everyone. Again, Nancy Colella. I am the founder for New York State Sustainable Corporation. Wanted to share with you a little bit about how this actual company came into fruition. Actually, as a marketing officer, I worked within commercial real estate. So some of my positions were as a marketing officer for commercial real estate brokerage, the building trades, and my last position before I went into my own firm was working for electrical contracting company. And that contracting company ran about like, I don't know, $300 million just worth of electrical contracting in Manhattan and throughout the country. And so one day, one of my positions there was to work with the engineers and specifically bring in new talent. And so this is what happened. I went to the site and fell in love with the process of actually being on site and working with the project itself. So with that, when I went back for my master's, I wrote my thesis on the green movement integrating into commercial real estate. And recognized shortly after that that there was a language barrier between commercial real estate owners and energy, right? Where you would walk in and speak with a real estate owner or property manager and start referencing kilowatt hours, how they can benefit from actually incorporating renewables or sustainability efforts. All they wanted to know was, hey, how much am I going to pay per square foot for this type of integration, and what am I getting in return? So basically what I did, knowing the language of commercial real estate and then the language of what I was starting to engage with, this was 6 years ago, with renewables, I bridged that language barrier, okay? So within that time frame between year 1 and year 3 or 4, I was bridging relationships within all the renewables, all ECMs, energy conservation measures, be it fuel cell, be it CHP, green hydrogen, and any kind of solar, of course. And then being able to, again, reach out to additional vendors that would assist me. So today, if I were to go into a meeting with a commercial real estate owner, whether they have a portfolio, whether they have land, whether they have a desire to become sustainable, I can actually bring in all of the players into the table and structure the deal based on what their requirements are as a business and how their behavior and what they really want to get out of this type of integration. Okay, so very importantly, today, I don't just install solar. I don't come in with just saying, listen, this is all I do. My main focus is to generate an additional cash flow for the owner of a portfolio in commercial real estate. Okay, that is my focus. So essentially, anything that I do with regards to relationships out in the field is critical. I am networking every single day. I go out to events. I find myself in completely 20 different associations and organizations. I work with brokers. I work with owners, property owners. I work with landowners. I mean, there's just, it's an extensive gamut for commercial real estate. And so this is how the transition from going into a professional career and then going into my own business. I have to say though, in commercial real estate, deals take years. The relationships take years. And I think most of the panelists on here will agree that as an entrepreneur, you are hunting every single day for those relationships. You're bridging how you can connect the dots from one relationship to the other and how you can structure the deals based on sustainability and bringing on best practices. I believe that every day I continue to learn. There are economics involved with, bridging these kinds of contracts, making them cost effective, time effective, and in all due honesty, I just feel like there is never a time that I'm not learning more from this organization, from this industry, from myself as a woman in trying to balance a life, a child, a house, and a career, right? And as a business owner, it never ends, right? So, I mean, I have extensive experience with being able to bridge that relationship with a commercial real estate owner so they feel confident in what I can bring to them. Because in every single opportunity, every single deal that I cultivate, there's such a uniqueness to it, because sustainability is something that we're just now navigating and learning. This is a brand new industry. It's a brand new opening to this world. And every day I meet another new business, another new entrepreneur who's created a way to better yesterday than today, into today. So I say to anyone who's interested in becoming an entrepreneur, do not stop, don't give up, just keep at it, keep learning, and keep speaking to others who are also going to better your business. I think that's the takeaway from being an entrepreneur, is that you need to surround yourself with people that are better than you, because I'm not the best at everything, but I do find that I bridge the people that are really necessary to make my deals composed and perfectly aligned with what the needs are to the end user. So that's me in a nutshell, and I'm not going to take more of your time.
Thank you for that, Nancy. I think your insight on creating successful teams and finding people who can supplement your skill set is very helpful, and that's kind of a proven management technique. So I know actually Samira, I'll call on you. Samira has additional insight on being a founder and an entrepreneur and balancing work and life. So maybe I'll transition to Samira now.
Thank you, Emily. Good evening, everyone. Based on the introduction that Emily presented, you probably noticed that I'm actually in Boston, not in New York. But we actually have an office in New York as well. We have multiple projects in New York City. First of all, congratulations on having such a great organization, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to participate on this career forum. I started the NV Energy Studio more than 6 years ago with the goal of being a third-party consultant on most of the design projects that I was working on before. Before starting the company, I was actually working as a sustainability consultant in a design firm. And I always noticed that because I was part of that company, I had a hard time criticizing some of the design decision that was being made. And therefore, that was one of the reasons that I thought that as a sustainability and energy consultant, I might be able to help projects to navigate through this new maze, I call it actually, because there are so many aspects of sustainability. Whether you are working on a project in California or New York, in Massachusetts, you end up working with different regulation, different laws. I always thought that as a third-party consultant, focusing on just those aspects and helping the design team, we are going to have a better project. So yes, I started NV Energy in 2016. I was working only by myself for the first couple of years. Now we have a team of 6 consultants. So as Nancy and Emily noted, it's not just about balancing the entrepreneurship, it's also learning how to manage a team and start growing the team and learning to rely on other people to do some aspects of the work that you don't know. My background is in architecture. I went to architecture school for undergrad, and I always thought that I'm actually going to become a designer. And after finishing up undergrad, I still decided to go for Master of Architecture because I was certain that I'm going to become a very well-known architect. After graduating from architecture school, when I was actually going to architecture school, it was kind of the beginning of the regional architecture and everyone talking about sustainability. It was LEED becoming a topic. So I started taking a course in sustainability, and that was when I fell in love with technical aspects of architecture and how they actually can have, how the design can have impact on environment and energy and climate. And therefore, when I graduated, I actually worked for a few months in an architecture firm, and I just realized that I'm more interested in the technical aspects. So I went back for a second master's degree with a focus in energy and sustainability. I never regret going to a school that long. I was in architecture school for 7 years because it basically taught me how to communicate with architects. At the same time, because my second master's was focused on mostly mechanical engineering, I learned how to speak the language of engineers. So we generally use sustainability as a bridge to bring architects and engineers and developers together to talk about a very, very specific aspect of the built environment. And that's how we can make that building not only beautiful from the aesthetic point of view, but also a very sustainable addition to that neighborhood, to that city, but also with a focus on improving the health and comfort for the occupants of that building. So that's basically the focus of most of our projects these days that we do as part of the NV Energy Studio.
Thank you for that overview, Samira. And then our final panelist will transition to Claire, who also is an architect by training and made the transition into sustainability as well. So Claire, I'll turn it over to you to provide a summary of your transition and what you're working on now.
Sure. So yeah, I worked as an architect for maybe 25 years. I would say the first 5 or so were not in sustainably focused architecture, but then I was lucky enough to find a firm here in New York City, Kiss and Cathcart Architects, who were very sustainable, and that changed my whole trajectory. I was looking for sustainability. I'm very happy to find them. And then I worked with them for about 18 years, and it was great, but still, it was kind of that midlife. I'm not sure this is all I want to do. Buildings take so long to design, and there's so much paperwork to get anything actually constructed, that then I became at a transition phase where I volunteered a lot with Urban Green Council. I was just looking for what would better fit. I did a passive house certification because that's very low energy housing. It was great. I really believe in it, but it didn't inspire me. And I don't love details and figuring out how buildings go together in such detail. But I kept always seeing these ads for biomimicry certification. And I actually did this. I started with just a 1-week course. Then I was like, okay, I'll sign up for the certificate in biomimicry. I actually ended up doing a whole professional certification and master's degree online in biomimicry at the same time. And sorry, biomimicry is learning from natural systems, so to influence human systems. So how can we learn from ecosystems to make more circular systems in cities, for example? So that really tied into my question about how to separate organic waste in New York City. So I was moderating a panel for Urban Green. It was talking about how New York City was bringing the brown bins for food waste to buildings. And I was just asking as I moderated, okay, I'm an architect that designed a building with 3 chutes for trash and the 2 recycling streams. How should this building collect food scraps? And there was no good answer. They're like, well, you could have put in an extra chute, but it's too late now. And even if you did, you can't put a little brown bin at the bottom of a chute. And there were just a load of problems. And that started me thinking, well, every architect is now going to figure this out for themselves. We need some sort of guidelines. And that was really my career pivot then. Urban Green didn't want to do the guidelines, so I went over to the AIA, where the Committee on the Environment, that's the American Institute of Architects, they were happy for me to look at starting these guidelines under their umbrella. And to start with, it was a volunteer effort. And then luckily I got through to someone in the city who got me through to the Rockefeller Foundation, and they decided to fund the guidelines. And after that 1 year developing these zero waste design guidelines, which really it was a real collaborative effort. It was going out to 40 buildings, talking with porters and people who move waste. It was talking with people who are really passionate about zero waste, having these sessions at the Center for Architecture with architects, building managers, city agencies, waste haulers, to really figure out how could we solve this, to launching the guidelines. And then I was like, I can't go back to straight architecture. I have to make this my career. And that pivot took a little time. I mean, it was hard to get consulting. I got some work from Department of Sanitation for doing education for architects. I was applying for some grants. And so it was definitely piecing things together for a few years, but now I'm up and running. I have both the nonprofit side and a women business enterprise side, because many city jobs want a certain set aside for WBEs or MBEs, and you can't be a women business nonprofit, that doesn't count. So I have the 2 sides, and a lot of work going on at the moment, and I have 3 part-time people helping me at the moment. And so, yeah, that's where I am, and I find it totally inspiring, and I love that I've made the pivot.
That's exciting. Can you talk a little bit more about your current paid clients that you have and how they're implementing the design waste guidelines?
So it's been all over the place. I mean, I guess my first big client that I'm no longer working with maybe was Google. That was very helpful because on the West Coast, they do a lot of development. So they were like, how can we integrate it into our new developments? I had another bigger job was Oceanics and the floating city. That was big. The architects Bjarke Ingels were looking at making a zero waste floating city with Oceanics, who are a venture capital backed group connected with the UN Habitat. That was a very interesting project because it was really looking at how we could make a new floating neighborhood zero waste, and that is kind of on hold for more fundraising. But that's been, I had to do that for free the first time, but then the second time it was paid. So those are the larger ones, but there's also developers in New York City of affordable housing may hire me to help them plan for better waste management. So developers and architects are one side. And then there's some grants. I got a grant from the Hong Kong Design Trust to look at taking the guidelines to Hong Kong, and I incorporated Singapore as well in that grant. And I just got a grant for Association of a Better New York to look at waste in open streets. So it really is a balance. And I'm doing some work for NYCHA now, New York City Housing Authority, which is really about designing their waste yards and how can we design them to have so that they can work for recycling and they look better. I'm sub to a landscape architect. So a wide variety. Oh, Zero Waste Hoboken, I'm a sub on that as well. So wide variety of projects, but all of them about waste and design.
And since you developed the zero waste design guidelines through AIA, I know you did kind of your tour of architecture firms in New York City. Has that continued to advance by educating and informing the architecture community and incorporating that into architecture design at the get-go?
It's definitely helped. DSNY sponsored that until the pandemic. So that was good bread and butter work for a couple of years. And I think it got the guidelines out there and noticed by a lot of architects. So now DSNY made a requirement for this waste management plan for large new housing developments. So a lot of the architects and developers have come to me now and said, can you help with that? So that kind of came out of the guidelines. We recommended that a waste management plan should happen. So it is kind of work that came from the guidelines.
And do you see any sort of mandate from the city in the future related to waste? Like, for example, a local law beginning with a pilot for new construction, or do you see that happening?
I mean, there's definitely council members who want to put a bill forward, who have a bill there for the city to have proper zero waste goals for mandatory food scrap collection. All those things would help, and I could help, could get me more work if those things come through. I do less work on building materials themselves and construction waste. It's more about designing for zero operational waste.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So now I'll throw out some kind of general questions to the panelists, and thank you all for your introductory summaries. I'll start with kind of a big picture question, and then we can go around and answer it. But this is focused on, you know, our topic tonight, which is being a woman in the sustainability profession. And as a woman in this sustainability profession, how do you see your role as a leader and a steward in the industry, not only for the work that you do, but also for other people in the industry and those, you know, starting out their careers as we transition to more sustainability focused design and development. Anyone want to go first? I know Nancy touched on it a little bit.
Sorry, I was muted. So yeah, so a lot of what's happening right now with sustainability, and I don't know if you guys have even like approached, like even going online on LinkedIn right now, you put in sustainability and just the jobs. And the reason why I'm referencing that is the jobs that are getting involved now or getting put out there are immense, because the mandates that are coming down from the government with sustainability efforts throughout, with green codes and the whole infrastructure being altered to become sustainable, has driven so much demand in green jobs, right? So tell me a little bit more about what you want me to answer, to a little bit more like specific in terms of sustainability, because it is vast. What is your actual question about sustainability?
It's more of a general question based on attendees and being a steward of the profession and the market, advancing the market while also growing sustainability as a profession for newcomers, you know, people joining the market,
Right.
and also the market transition.
Well,
if
so
you will.
again, we're going to go back to, you know, policy, right? Because sustainability is three prongs. It's policy first. Secondly, the ability to solve a problem, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to solve the problem. And thirdly, it's really how everyone works together to actually solve the issue from an infrastructure basis, from a sole project basis, or from actual policy. Because you have to understand that it's like everything that we do is relevant to who's in office, right? And so we're either limited to what we can do, we're given mandates, but we also have to rely on incentives, on money getting applied to these projects, right? Because technology is expensive, right? All new, the small businesses want to get involved in this industry, but yet, you know, we also need to understand that there's limitations to what we can do when there's actual no buy-in just yet, right? Sustainability is all buy-in. There's folks that I work with that understand it and love it and want everything to do with sustainability. Others, they can care less. They just want to save money if they can, or be able to offset any kind of, like, you know, capital expenditures with the incentives that are available. So in my eyes, it's always about when you go into a process that you're thinking, hey, I want to start a business. What is the problem I'm going to solve? How is policy going to back me up as a small business, right? Because there's got to be some kind of backup. The reason that I also went into this industry is not only just to make a difference as opposed to a paycheck, is that I knew that this green movement was going to come down, and it was going to be a push from the government, right? This push is going to help me leverage my business instead of me having to do all the legwork, right? So again, sustainability as a whole is growing, but you have to find the, like Claire, she just demonstrated a perfect alignment of something she was passionate about, and she figured out a way to implement just a common list that is necessary to get involved with the environmental conservation of materials, let's say, right? And Samira, she found a method that was based on quality, because what was being done then, what she's learned, completely two different animals, right, Samira? I mean, honestly, she said, this is old school. We're talking about, you know, she learned 2 masters. She's got 2 masters now. She's got all this intel, and she knows that it's being done wrong, right? I worked for a solar company one time as their commercial development officer. And these folks were thinking that these deals were going to come in like, you know, like donuts, but they take years to cultivate, right? Because there has to be the relationships and everything else that's involved with a large commercial real estate deal. I knew it was being done wrong. They were wrong, but they were handling it. So that's why I left, because it was just completely off base. So I started my own business based on the fact that I knew how it should be done, right? So it's finding that navigating this policy, navigating the environment that we are in today, finding a niche that works, that's going to solve a problem, and also understanding that policy, you have to understand policy. You have to get involved. You have to get involved with who's in office, what's happening, what kind of planning developments going on, and get involved with the organizations, associations that are involved with policy in order to be able to what? Bridge what you know and what you can do. And that's and essentially I work with also some of the unions. The unions are specifically working with me and 2 other developers for green hydrogen. Why? Because Kathy, the governor of New York State, wants to develop Long Island as the first green hydrogen hub. Okay, so with that, the unions are very hard on pushing that, because what happens? We develop jobs. It's economic stimulus, right? So all these things come into play, but knowledge is never going to do you wrong. You've got to keep learning about what's happening in the industry, what's happening out there in every gamut of business, okay? Economically, it's never going to steer you wrong. You just have to learn and keep networking and finding out and talking to people that do know. And that's really the whole nut and caboodle.
Network, network, network.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Samira, Claire?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to network, I think volunteering with organizations like Green Home NYC or Urban Green are a way to get into networking.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that as well. I was actually on an emerging professional panel a few weeks ago. Someone asked, how do you network? Because I'm tired of constantly going from one event to another event. And my advice, because I was one of those people, like I was thinking that, okay, I have 10 business cards, so I'm going to go to this event and I need to collect 20 business cards. And that was not a good approach. It was more about find a fun event, volunteer at some local event, do something that you enjoy, and you never know who is actually sitting next to you and who you're going to meet. And sometimes those relationships actually are better than going to just networking event after work to meet new people. But also, Emily, you mentioned women there. I don't know the exact number or women in sustainability, but as someone that worked actually in an engineering firm for a few years, actually the sustainability industry has more women than men. In one of the Women in Green, as part of the Green Build conference, they were actually talking about it, and they were trying to figure out what's behind it, that actually more women choose sustainability over design. I still don't know the answer, but as someone that basically decided to leave the engineering world and start a sustainability firm, I always had so many female entrepreneurs around me that I could just pick up the phone and call them and ask them, hey, how did you deal with this situation? That I kind of didn't feel that I'm alone and by myself. And that's a positive thing about sustainability. If I was going to start an engineering firm, I'm sure that I would have had a far more difficult time than starting a sustainability consulting firm.
I guess so. Then this begs another question, which is the value of mentorship in developing your career and giving you the confidence to start your own organization. All of you have begun elsewhere and transitioned into your roles and kind of honed your skills. What's the value of mentors that you've had in helping to advance your careers?
I'll go first. Basically, my mentorship was actually always fear. I have to be honest with you, because I always had a responsibility as a marketing officer to throw myself into the lion's den, because most in commercial real estate is all men. It's 99.9% men. So I always had to kind of throw myself in, because if I didn't come out with the, knowing that I've met or touched somebody that was necessary, right, for the development of my own career, there was an issue, right? And I did have some mentors, but the mentors were more like, folks that I worked with in my office who were kind enough to share what they knew, right? Or those principals of firms that would just sit with me or sit with in a group, and we would have like a meeting about what the projects are, and I just learned so much just from taking the time to understand what they did and getting invested into and interested in what they did. It wasn't just me just staying in my lane. I always hated staying in my lane. I wanted to learn what they did, because if the more I knew, the more invaluable I became, because I was always able to then bridge what was important to know when I went out on the field, right? So mentorship has always been important for me, but I feel like mentorship and relationships are the same. They're one and the same, because I'd rather have 2,000 relationships that I have really strong ties with than one mentor who only has one specific ideal, and I'm learning from the others so much more, because I need opinions and thought. I need to be able to kind of crunch all those different thoughts and then come up with my own, right? So I just always felt like it needed to be a challenging process, and networking gives you that. You're every time you go out and you network, you're meeting 5 or 6 different types of people, new people that you've never talked to before. And now what? They're teaching you something new, right? You're gonna sit down and have a cup of coffee with somebody that you're like, wow, I never even knew that this kind of business existed, right? So like Samira said, it was just you have to understand that when you go out to an event, or you go to a place that you believe your market is going to be in, you got to go to the opposite. You already know your market. You've been there, you've done that. Go somewhere where you're uncomfortable. Disrupt what you typically do and learn, and go into a place that you would otherwise not, because that's where you're going to find that one person that's going to give you that deal that's going to bridge you, because it's what we're comfortable with that never works. You have to be uncomfortable. Disrupt what you typically do and learn from there.
Good insight.
Thanks.
Anything else from you, Claire? I know I actually, I know that I've seen you and met you and talked to you at the SWAB, the Solid Waste Advisory Board, in Brooklyn, and there's one in Manhattan as well. So I know that you also work in many different realms to help spread your awareness of your organization at the same time.
Yeah, I speak a lot. I speak to students as well. I did a presentation today. I figure it's always good to present, and you often learn things. I don't think I ever really had a conventional mentor, but I think mentors definitely can help, and organizations often have that, like the AIA has mentor programs, or there's a Zero Waste Academy you can sign up for to learn more about zero waste. It's a free lecture series, which is great. Or the Urban Design Forum, or CUP. There are fellowships, or the Civic Engagement Fellowship at AIA. There are these kind of fellowships that are add-on to your jobs. And I think those are very interesting, because like the Urban Design Forum, now they're looking at waste. And so it's about 20 or 30 young professionals who are going to look at the challenge of waste. It was food last time. So it's on top of their job. It's quite a commitment, but it's definitely a really great networking event. Participation, you learn more about it, you get to network, you meet with city agencies as well to figure things out. So I think sometimes looking for ways to network that are more than just an event, as Samira was saying, is important.
Yeah, and Danielle asked the question about what the best approach is to finding a mentor, saying that she's reached out to people on LinkedIn but doesn't hear back. And I think you've all talked about the value of meeting people in person, joining organizations that align with your interests, pursuing volunteer opportunities or other things where you can meet people in person and also share your skills and your expertise combined with your passion.
Yeah, can I add one to them? Volunteering at conferences. There's often, you can get to conferences for free if you do a volunteer and you help man doors and stuff. Yeah, anything where you can give as well. I think people are more likely to give back to you if you've volunteered, and it's more personal. Yeah, LinkedIn, I mean, it's hard to respond to emails on LinkedIn.
Yeah. One of the things I would recommend is getting on a, like the volunteer is one thing, but you could also get on the board if you can. There are organizations that offer like free participation for a board if you become like one of the they have individual departments on specific organizations and associations that you could either be on the board and then participate that way. And then if you engage with someone who you find is a senior from your level, you can, ask and be specifically, wanting to be trained by them or shown or mentored or whatever it is. But I think that that's a great way to bridge, a relationship, like Claire said, you give a little bit and you get a lot back. So you never know, that's a great way too.
What is some advice you would give to people who are currently looking to break into this industry, transition into sustainability, and or to found their own organization focused on sustainability?
I think my first one would be, don't ditch where you come from. You've probably got a lot of experience that may not be in sustainability, but can be pivoted towards it. So for me, the waste field, I was definitely going to come from the architectural side. So think where you've come from and try and use that, even if it's transferring. Maybe you've done a lot of management of teams and how you can get into sustainability by using the skills you already have.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's valuable advice. And I, based on all of our panelists' backgrounds, I think that's what you have all done, focused on your base education and background to then build off of that, I guess. And then that segues into another question, which is how valuable do you believe your education was in helping to foster the transition to sustainability versus just getting the job and doing the work in the field and the on-the-job experience you received?
Since I went to school for a long time, I can answer that question. If someone on this call is in a school, I highly recommend that they find an internship in one of the local sustainability firm and try that before continuing their education, because so my background helped a lot. I talked about it a little bit. I studied architecture and I am working in the building industry, so it was very related. But I didn't have any education related to the technical aspect of my work. We do energy modeling, which is basically using software to simulate the entire building and analyze and see how much energy that building is going to use, and then start adding energy conservation measures. So it gets very, very technical. Not every aspect of sustainability needs a lot of education and going back to a school. Majority of my employees actually do not have, a couple of them have master's degree in sustainability, but a few of them have undergrad degrees in engineering, and they never actually thought that they're gonna pursue a career in sustainability. They just decided to do a co-op. One of them actually was a co-op here, which is kind of a 6-month internship through the school in my firm. And then after graduation, he just decided to stay and pursue a career in sustainability. And he learned everything about sustainability during co-op and then first year of employment here. So it's not about, it's good to basically learn the basics at a school, but if you don't have a background in sustainable architecture or sustainable design or building performance, it's not a barrier. You can, as Claire noted, you've probably learned a lot of things either at the school or during your current job, that you can actually use that knowledge and find some aspect of sustainability that you can succeed in.
I guess, and then maybe Claire, can you speak to the employees that you've hired to help you? What are their backgrounds and where did you find them? How did you meet them?
I actually had a pretty extensive process on LinkedIn, and I put it out on LinkedIn and through some of the universities, and one of them then put it on Design Gigs for Good, but which is another portal, but I had put it out through Pratt and School of Visual Arts, and maybe a couple more that I knew about. But really, to start with, I thought I didn't need an architect, and I actually had someone who was a graphic designer as well. But then I realized after a little while that what I was looking for really needed kind of an architecture mindset in terms of spatial knowledge. So then I reposted it, requiring that. And yeah, I interviewed like 18 people for what was a part-time position, and then gave a little design exercise for people to do that was paid, just to be sure that I had the right type of person. And so yeah, it's working very well, that more thorough hiring process. But yeah, mainly it was on LinkedIn. So I would say if there's an organization you like, follow them on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn jobs is very easy. And I always tell people who reach out saying they want to work for me, follow me on LinkedIn. I'll post the job there.
Thanks. So Danielle asks, and this is slightly related to what you just expressed. Do you ever find your team needing a user experience digital web designer? That's her background, and she's hoping to shift into sustainability as a web designer, but notice that a lot of organizations don't understand the importance of that role.
I mean, I think it's an important role, and I'm sure we will need it at some point, but just catching up on what we need to do. But Design Gigs for Good would have a lot of gigs for a UX designer.
Okay, thanks for that. Next, I'm just going to shift into some other overview questions while we await any questions from the audience that they have towards our panelists, or any specific panelist member that you'd like to pose a question to. So as a founder of an organization, how do you currently balance your work with your personal life balance? And you find that as a founder and a leader of an organization, you have to commit so much time to this organization to get it off the ground. How are you able to balance what you do and your commitment to your organization as well as your own personal life? You want to go, Claire? You're smiling.
That's a tough one. I have to say that I feel like it's a bit like when you first hire, you're a bottleneck because you can't hire someone who's you can pass things on to, or I can't. I haven't got the money flow to really get someone senior enough to take some of my workload. Hoping it will become better in the future in terms of work-life balance, but at the moment I do work really hard. I'm lucky that my kids are a little older and less needy, but yeah, it's a difficult balance.
Okay, so you're still working through that.
Yes.
What about you, Samira? I know you have some insight on this.
Yeah, that's a tough question. So the first few years, there was no balance. It's still a 24/7 game. I call it that. It doesn't mean that I'm in front of a computer 24/7, but there are times that the business needs my attention even at midnight. However, what I learned and decided to do is that I can't completely separate myself from the company, but what I can do, I can bring the play and fun to the company. And have that with my team. So it's not just work when we are in the office, because when you work in the construction industry, generally you can have 8 to 5 job. So I heard something which I don't remember who actually said that, but it's a very famous, maybe someone actually knows that. It says the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. Meaning that if you constantly feel guilty that, oh my God, I have a deadline, but right now I am out with my team doing bowling, you should not feel guilty, because you're basically, when you're out with your team or with your partner or with your kids and having fun, you're also building something that can be positive for the company, for your startup. Because if I don't feel happy about my personal life, I can't guide a team, I can't be happy in the company. So the thing that I did to also have the things that helps with my personal growth as well as my health is that it's funny, some people actually laugh at me, but I put my workout as well as some other fun things that I like to do on my to-do list. So I don't prioritize meetings over that 30 minutes run that I need to have in the morning. Or if I need to have a date night with my partner, it is on my calendar. So I don't schedule an event or anything for that. And I try to stay with that. I look at it as a very important meeting that I have with a client that I can't change it. So I try to basically stick with that. That plan works for me. I get some of my friends actually make fun of me that I have my workout and date nights on my calendar. But that's how basically I brought balance into my work and personal life.
Establishing boundaries is important.
Yeah.
Any insights from you, Nancy?
Yeah, so for the first 3 years, I have to be honest, there was no balance, much like Samir. I was taking conference calls while I was picking up my daughter at the bus. You know, this is just part of the growth cycle of my business. And even today, I could be taking a run and I'm answering a call because I have to stop and take that call. But one of the things I will say, okay, even though there's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of heart being put in your business, There is nothing more rewarding than it being yours, your baby. You have developed it. You're nurturing this child to be one day an adult that just runs off on its own. You understand? So the beauty of having your own business, and there's something that's worth a lot more than money, it's time. Okay. One of the precious things in life that we have is the ability as an entrepreneur to schedule and have your own time, right? So I would prefer, honestly, and just this is as a footnote to everybody, I would prefer to work 40 hours towards a project that's going to deliver $100,000 to my pocket than to work 1,000 hours for $4,000. Okay, so again, this is what I'm saying too. Time and money, totally two different things. There's a value more in time than there is in money. And when you have your own, it is such a wonderful, successful pattern of mentality that you develop from that, because it is yours and you cultivate it and you embrace it and you make it grow, much like you develop it like a child, you know? And I can't emphasize how wonderful it is to have your own business. As hard as it is and as challenging as the first couple of years are, it's very rewarding at the end when you do your first, you have your first client signed. Samira probably could tell you when her first client signed a contract with her or retainer, she was like probably jumping up in the air. She was like, and she was holding her breath because waiting for them to finish signing the paper. You know?
Yeah, my first contract was only $3,000, and I can't believe that how happy I was about a $3,000 contract.
How long did it take you to acquire that one client? How long? A long time, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep, it was hours of follow-up, hours of phone calls, hours of showing them what your abilities were, hours of proving yourself, right?
Mhm.
My first deal took me 3 years. This man was the worst owner ever in life, okay? He was the meanest man in the world, and he loves me today. Why? Because I stuck it out. It took him 3 years for him to do this contract with me. I mean, you know, and meanwhile, it was a sweetheart deal. It was a $1.3 million deal that he would end up paying with all the carve outs, incentives, everything else. And he was making $65,000 a year in the sale of this power. It cost him $200,000. A $200,000 sunk cost that he would have ended up paying just to repair one of his roofs, in which we repaired all 4 of the properties and added brand new electrical to all his properties. I mean, it was a sweetheart deal. And the man took 3 years to sign. But listen, at the end, I just want to say it is worth it. Just stick it out, but learn that there's got to be something that you really, really love that's going to be a benefit and it's going to solve a problem. That's the most critical thing.
So Melissa asks, and this is a great question, Melissa. This is going to be my next segue as well. Can the panelists speak about the process of starting a business entity? Sounds like there was a lot of relationship building to get things started before you transitioned. When did you know it had the potential and decide to incorporate or establish your nonprofit, and what were the first steps?
I can go first on mine with that. I mean, I started very small. The guy I do tax with, it's very small. He's like, why make an LLC? Just do a sole proprietorship, get your doing business. My DBA, my name, Think Woven, got it registered, but I didn't set up even an LLC to start with. He said, if you don't think you're going to be sued, don't worry about it. So I started very small. And then I do have professional insurance now for that. And then for the nonprofit, I am not my own nonprofit. I heard about the fund for the city of New York who acts as a fiscal sponsor. So again, I'm like, I don't want to do all that paperwork. I'd rather pay them 9% of everything I make, and for them to do all the nonprofit paperwork, HR, insurance, everything. So I've tried to make it very lean and smooth for me, rather than spending a lot of time on the business itself.
Do you have to renew your nonprofit contract or agreement every couple of years, or?
With the fund, no, I think they keep me on until either of us don't want to. They have a lot of
Oh, okay.
nonprofits. It was Cafeteria Culture, another nonprofit, who told me about them and were like, you really should consider the fund, because the other great thing about them is that they'll front money if you have a city contract. So they help with cash flow as well.
And then when you founded your organization, were you still working with the architecture firm? No,
No.
you'd already gone out.
Yeah.
Okay. What about, I know, Samira, you left your engineering firm and just started, right?
Yeah, so because I didn't have non-compete, but because it's a small network, I didn't want to start my firm while I was working there, because I was running their department. So I gave them a 2-month notice, and as soon as I gave them my notice, I basically had this ability to start networking and telling people that I'm gonna start a company. So yes, to answer that question, it involves a lot of relationship building, but I also have a friend, here's a friend, and her husband started a construction company many years ago. So I got a lot of advice about how to start an LLC. What I do, I couldn't actually start it. I could, but it would have been very risky to have started under my name and not establish an LLC, because the construction projects were very large. They were asking for a large liability insurance, but also the odds of getting sued in our industry is high. So I needed to start an LLC, and I got a lot of feedback from that person that had started his company 10 years ahead of me. The advice that they gave me, and I tell everyone that wants to start a company, and I echo Nancy's talk, that do it if you want to do it. There's no good time. Today is the time just to start your own company. Don't wait. Don't say that, oh my God, maybe recession is going to happen. If you want to start a company, do it tonight. Start writing your business plan. I'm not saying start your LLC tonight, but like do it right away, because if you wait, it's not going to happen. And it was very challenging, but it was the best decision that I made. And I tell anyone that is on this call, if you have any question about how to start an LLC, I'd be happy to answer that. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn, because I want to give back. Someone helped me with that. They told me to hire an accountant first. They told me, if you don't want to spend money anywhere, that's fine. Don't rent an office. Don't buy an expensive laptop. Don't buy anything expensive. Start from your bedroom, but have money to work with accountant, so they can give you an advice on how to establish your LLC and what is good for you and your the money that you have, because you need to have savings, right? Because you're basically saying no to a paycheck to start a company. And second was that all of those people that you built a relationship with, and they told you, oh yeah, if you start your company, I'm going to give you your first project. They're not going to give you your project. They're going to wait until they are 100% sure, because especially because all the relationship that I built were with very large real estate developers. So they are going to wait to see that if you're going to survive the first year. They don't want to hire you for a project that is going to take 3 to 4 years to be built. And then after a year, you say, oops, sorry, I couldn't make it. And so you need to look for another consultant. And that was true. So all those relationships, I kept them, but I started going after the smallest project possible, a very short period of time. So I can prove to my clients that I am working hard, I'm gonna stay in business, so trust me. And all those larger companies, within a year or so, when they saw that I am working, I stayed in business, they actually started trusting me and giving projects to work on.
So do you believe that you've crossed the threshold of the initial startup phase and now you've moved into the established organizational phase? And then what do you see as the future for your organization? What are your market goals and where do you see the industry heading?
So basically they say when you pass the 5 years, but that's a generic thing that they say for startups, that if you pass the 5 years, it's the bump and you're good to go. So we passed the 5 years. We have been having over 20% growth every year. So, however, I still work for probably 3 full-time employees because I don't want to take the risk of constantly hiring people. Like, we constantly need to hire, but I'm very careful on how we hire, because first of all, I care a lot about the person's culture and they basically can get along with the team. But also I don't want to hire 2 people and then suddenly a couple of projects goes on hold and then lay off the person. So if I wanted to go with the forecast that myself and my accountant actually put together, because the accountant that I'm working on also, she's kind of a startup consultant as well. She's been with me from day one. We should have had 10 people working right now in this company, but we are at 6 plus 1 part-time, because I feel the slow and steady growth is better than a fast and a scary growth. That also looks better in front of my clients. They know that we are growing, but it's not something that they say, oh, we have 10 people this year and then we are at 5 next year. So yeah, to answer your question, I think we passed it. We have a very good list of returning clients. I don't need to go and make cold calls that much anymore. Most of our projects are returning clients and referrals. So I think when you get to that position for your company, you know that you made it. When other people refer unknown clients to you and someone calls you and say, so and so told me that you do a great job, can you work with us on that project? So we are in that stage, so I think we made it. And what the other thing as part of our business development that I also think, it's because we are in a sustainability world, there are so many aspects of sustainability that we add one aspect to our business every year. So I generally hire someone that does something that I don't know. And I always hire someone during the interview. I told them, I'm not hiring you as an employee, I'm hiring you as a partner, because actually the other thing that is happening right now in my company is that we are changing the structure from LLC to LLP, so employees can become partners. That's rewarding for them because they know that they are also building their future along with this company. So yeah, I always look for people that can teach me something, but also bring a new service to the company so we can always stay relevant in the sustainability world. Therefore, I can see this company to become a very large sustainability firm that can basically take one project from day one, whether it's a building or it's a neighborhood, and provide all the sustainability consulting and aspect for that project.
So you want to be able to deliver a full service sustainability certifications for projects of various sizes and scales.
Right.
And then is your aspiration to remain just local Boston or expand beyond Boston?
So we have a virtual office. Well, basically, we have a desk in New York, which I was using it before pandemic. No, we want to expand. We have projects all over the country. We have projects, three projects right now in California. I think pandemic kind of changed our plans, because before that, most of the meetings were in person. I needed to be in the meeting, so I needed to have a place to go to when I was traveling to California or North Carolina or Atlanta. Right now, most of the meetings, even for locals, is online through Zoom. So I haven't seen the need for basically starting a physical office in any of those states. But yes, long term, I'm hoping that we continue moving out of pandemic culture that everything is online to in person. And when that is the case, yes, I can see actually us having offices in other cities and states.
I think, Claire, you mentioned that you've expanded by word of mouth as well. And then maybe Nancy, I don't know if you're mostly working in the area as well.
Right.
Do you have what are your broad vision goals for your organization in the future?
Right. So, so currently my goal is, I'm more of I'd have to say like a renewable broker, in that, you know, the relationships that I have are all contracted relationships, that I structure deals based on the relationships that I carry within commercial real estate ownership, right? So my goal is perhaps to grow, but not necessarily grow with employees, because the folks that I have contracts with have employees, have engineers, have all of the facilitation that I can support any project, right? But my goal is to perhaps have, you know, an engineer in-house, so that we can facilitate, you know, the proposals quicker, be able to evaluate if there's a feasibility alignment. And I do want to have a technical in-house application in-house, right? Samira also spoke on full service. I believe that there is a big avenue for me to bring in even somebody who's professionally can finance and support the deal, so that they can structure the deal based on, again, a professional aspect alongside of the owner, because they always want that type of facilitation where there's a finance person that they can speak to, that works within the project and understands the project, and then can compile and work with legal to structure the deal, right? So those are my goals from within, maybe from now 5 years out. I want to have that. I want to have like high-level professionals in my office, four of them tops. That's it. And I want to speak to a little bit about, like, you know, the startup. I think it's very important for anybody who's going to start a business at all to understand what makes you special in the market. So you have to come up with a marketing plan. You have to definitely, there's templates everywhere. You just, you know, get a hold of a template and absolutely start putting it on paper. Because when you put it on paper, it solidifies your goals, it solidifies your next steps, and you understand your business, your acumen, your culture more by understanding what you really are supplying to this type of business, or your business specifically. And then you understand your market, and that's really important. The marketing plan is really understanding your market, what separates you from Joe next door, what type of techniques you have to come up with to actually touch your market, right? Understanding all that is critical before you even start to consider formalizing your business. I opened up my corporation because I knew that there was going to be different divisions within my business, understanding that I would have maybe a finance arm, and I have an engineering arm, and I have all these arms. I came up with a corporation, okay? But I think it's really critical for everybody to understand and put any type of conceptual idea for a business on paper. That's first and foremost, always, because even when you go into small business organizations that assist you with organizing a woman or minority business, your any type of status that you want to develop, or you want to get assistance from these organizations, they're going to ask you for that. And I think it's important for you to understand first what you have as a business, what makes you different, and then how to come up with a pitch as to what makes you different from everyone else, because that's important to that bridge building, segment. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on the development of how you do your first steps.
Thank you so much. I think we have just a few minutes left, so we'll just ask one question and then close. There are just a couple left in the chat, but I'll jump to this one, which is, being an entrepreneur, how helpful is it to be open to constructive feedback and criticism? And I guess that's more of a question about dealing with relationships internally and externally. You all have small teams, so it's probably, how do you address conflicts within your internal teams? And then also, how do you respond to criticism that you receive from clients?
I'll go real quick. I just, criticism to me is actually really important. I think you learn more from it than for it to be on a negative, take it as a negative. I've learned that we are, again, not perfect. And if there is criticism, it's only because somebody feels that they need to tell you that, because they know that there's going to be an ability to collaborate and meet halfway and come to some kind of resolution, right? So to me, handling feedback or handling criticism is completely the way you're taking it, and you should never take it as a negative. Always take it as an opportunity to learn from it and come up with a resolution that will better facilitate you for the next time, so that you know that you have to improve, or you have to change the way that this particular feedback is coming to you. You understand? So that's my thought.
Any other comments, Samira, Claire?
I would just agree. You have to think of criticism as constructive and positive wherever you can.
Samira, anything to add?
I absolutely agree with that. So the second portion of that question was about, I think, our team. It's more about being open with them and letting them make mistakes, so they don't think that you're criticizing their work, but basically you're helping them to get better in what they're doing. So I always tell them that it's okay. I prefer that they actually try multiple times and make the mistakes and learn some things on their own, instead of constantly I'm hand holding them and telling them what the next step is. And they like that. They realize that it's okay to make mistakes. We are all working as a team, and someone is going to QC and send it to the client. So if the mistake is internal, the criticism is internal, it's constructive, and they like. There was a question about the podcast. If you don't mind, I answer that very quickly.
Do you have one?
I have one. It's not something that helped me to start a company, how I built this. When you start a company, there are days that you question everything you have done. And listening to that podcast, basically, because every entrepreneur, and there are basically large companies, so they had a glorious success. But when they start talking about how they started and how to made it, they talk about all the difficulties that they went through, and you realize that you're not alone. So you basically try to keep going and be open-minded and be patient and go through it. So I highly recommend how I built this. I love it. I still listen to it.
I love that podcast too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining. I'll throw it back to ask if any of the panelists want to, say some parting words before we go. But I want to thank, you, Samira, Claire, and Nancy for joining us tonight, and all of our attendees for listening in. Specifically to the three of you, I know you're all very busy. You have choices in how you spend your evenings. You could be having dinner with your partner or be exercising. So thank you for choosing to dedicate some time to Green Home NYC this evening. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and I hope all the attendees found some valuable information from the panelists. So feel free, Samira, if you want to say some closing remarks, and then we can pass it on.
Oh, that's hard. Establish your company tonight.
Call your accountant.
Mm-hmm. My biggest thing is that you have to, in the back of your mind, twice on Sunday, you must know your pitch. What's your pitch? You got to have a pitch. It's so important. When you shake someone's hand, you say your name, what you do, how you do it, and understand your business, what you really bring to the table, and be firm and be confident, and just, be your own cheerleader, because you know what? There's going to be so many people that tell you, what are you doing? You don't know anything about it. You know how many times I heard that, guys? You don't know what you're doing. You have no idea. This is a brand new industry. And I'm like, whatever. I just jumped in and did it. So sometimes that's how you have to handle it. You just have to jump in. You got to work your way out, like working your way out of a mud pit. You know what I mean? But just stay focused. Just go forward and keep going. Right, Samira? I mean, honestly, nothing is ever easy in having a business, especially when you start up, especially negative feedback from people that, you know what, people are very comfortable being comfortable and complacent. You're not that person. And so what? Be the trendsetter, be the person that makes a difference for yourself. That's it. That's my last words.
Okay.
Powerful last words. Claire.
My last one. So one thing that was really helpful in biomimicry was peer coaching. Just find someone else who's like a friend who also wants to change their life somehow, and meet every 2 weeks and have them hold you accountable. Else you'll just go round and round. Oh, I really want to get into sustainability. I could do that. I could do that. Have them make you say, what are you going to do in the next 2 weeks? And then have them hold you accountable, because else, that's what I found really helpful. Once I'd said so many times to people, I'm going to leave my job and set up, I felt like I had to, because I put it out there. Whereas if it had been going around in my mind, it could have stayed in my mind. And then one more thing, especially in sustainability, people often think about how can I make the biggest impact? And I think it was Bill McKibben who said, you have to match what your biggest gift is to the planet's need. So don't always think of the biggest impact. Just think of what's going to light your flame and inspire you, as well as what the need is.
Thank you. Amazing parting words from our fabulous standout panel of women in sustainability, women entrepreneurs. So thank you so much. Thank you all for attending, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks for organizing. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.